what is the agenda of the virus? By my perception, the agenda is to add fertilizer or to add another engine to the plane of awakening for everyone on Earth. The virus, because see, the virus is so simple. It's so, the experience of the virus, like it's like us as humans, our experience is the center of the focus of our experience is at the gross material level of life. So it's like our point of perspective is at this gross material level, the physical reality, that's our point of perspective. And at a fine level, if we evolve the technology, we can go down to a fine level and we become very powerful at the subtle level of our being, right? The virus, its point of perspective is the subtle level. Its body is so simple that its point of understanding, its perspective of understanding the world is at the causal level, the finest feeling level. So it's not thinking, oh, I'm going to incite fear all over the world. Oh, no, it's not like, you know, the evil witch trying to do that. That's not what the virus is doing. The virus is wanting evolution, wanting to express its full potential, wanting to support the intention of expanding the full potential of every being on Earth. That is held, it's coveted in the heart of Mother Divine, you could say, is the desire to have every being on Earth express their full potential in the most powerful way, and most complete way. And the virus is just part of that process. But like everything in nature, it favors evolution over comfort. So the virus is doing it in a kind of intense way, right? One lady is saying it's here to clear the addictive blindness from all of us, from the ancestral level outwards. Then another very wise lady is saying it will help build more immunity. Absolutely that. But immunity in this case comes from learning how to forge a harmonious relationship with our microbial reality. And that means we needed more tools on the level of sensory perception. We need to be able to smell them. I have a really dear friend who is, she's a very famous woman. She's midwife. She works out of Bali, and she said that she can tell the instant she walks into a house where a new mother has just given birth, she can tell instantly if that mother has an infection by the smell, because there's a special smell that a mother who's fighting an infection has, and she can tell the difference by that. And so she had to, in order to be at the level that she's at, her level of proficiency and greatness, she had to evolve outside the context of this virus, the ability to smell infections, different types of infections. She can identify them with the sense of smell. Now this is something we all need to have, because this is one of the key channels of connection between ourselves and our microbial world. Even minerals have smells. They're rocks. Different rocks have different types of smells. Different types of dirt have different types of smells in them. The knowledge that comes in through the sense of smell is associated with earth element. Earth element, the heaviest of the 8 forms of nature. The 8 Prakritis. Earth element. And so earth element stands at one end of that spectrum, and ego stands at the other end of that spectrum. Got earth on one side, ego on the other. Ego being sense of self. Earth being, we could say, all the denser of the Prakritis are sense of self, only like more defined and more, I'm gonna use the word isolated because that's the word that's coming to me, but more within specific constraints. Download coming in. Download coming in for everybody's physiology right now. Establishing cosmic sense of self, identification with eternal self, eternal being, through the layers of the Prakritis, the 8 Prakritis, which are, just to review, the 5 senses, which associate with the 5 elements, right? And then mind, intellect, and ego. As cosmic self, or identification with eternal self, stabilizes all the way up to the sense of smell. What that's doing is it's supporting our ability to recognize divinity through everything. I remember years ago this famous quote by Maharishi that circulated through the movement, that eventually, when the time comes to be fully awakened and fully enlightened, even the smell of a rotten bus could be the impetus for that awakening and that enlightenment. And it's just so interesting because he said that, 40 or 50 years ago, he said that, and yet it's like it still holds true, that when the awakening comes all the way up to the sense of smell, and even if you're smelling something completely disgusting like the smell of a rotten bus, that's okay, because at that point, divinity is found in every particle of experience. Beautiful, beautiful. So the download coming for everyone is this awakened, it's an integration. It's a download for integration of the ability to find wholeness and to recognize oneself. It's like an awakening. It's an integration for the ego between separated individual sense of self and universal self. The connection to universal sense of self, or that expansion of ego to universal ego, all the way through to sense of smell, all the way through the 8 Prakritis. Divinity is just interacting with itself at every point, even rotten smells. All right, on that note of rotten smells, let's look at the next question, shall we? Most nurses can smell different infections. Yes, this is coming from a woman who's a nurse. Each bacteria has a characteristic smell. Often nurses can tell the doctor what the infection is before the patient is tested. H. pylori has a characteristic smell on the breath. Doctors know this now and will test if they smell it. That's brilliant. Yeah, and this is, these are the kinds of things that we as a culture don't tend to talk about. It's considered, someone's saying a living word from Maharishi, bless you. It's considered completely socially appropriate to discuss things that we hear or see, but it's kind of considered a little bit like almost into the range of taboo, or people get a little nervous or uncomfortable if you talk about things that you smell, right? It's not quite as much of an open topic. It's not quite as much of an open topic. But it is our fundamental channel for interacting with the microbial level of our reality. So it has to be an open channel, because, as I was saying earlier, I'm going to pick up a thread from much earlier in this morning's talk, which is that our center focus of, or point of perspective, is the relative level of creation, basically, because we're functioning through these instruments, these human physiology instruments. But when we bring our awareness down to the really subtle levels of consciousness, we become ultra powerful. Well, it's the same with the virus, only flipped around the other way. The virus's center of focus, its main point of perspective in reality, is that causal level of creation, that finest feeling level of creation. But when it exerts itself to come up more and interact more at the relative level of creation, it becomes ultra powerful. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this nano object, these little tiny one-celled creatures, and they've got humanity, our big human evolved community on Earth, under their thumb. They're just holding us down. They're going, you know, I'm just going to hold you here like this for a while. And all of humanity, like, we were the dominant race. You know, we're the ones in charge of everything. They were like, oh no, I'm being held down by this guy. Yeah, it's very humbling, right? What does it do? It's going on our egos, right? It's going right on the ego. Oh yes, the humans are the dominant race on Earth. No, you're not. And all of a sudden our egos are like, oh, ego reset. So beautiful, right? It's beautiful. It's like, thank you, because these forms, these bacteria are, you know, the bacteria are just like, they're so egoless, essentially. I know, reality check. Yeah. So if we're talking agendas of the virus, I would say this is what we're doing. This is what we're looking at right now, is an ego reset for everyone. And it is absolutely the best thing that could possibly happen, because when the ego gets a chance to reset, it gets out of its small, individualized, separate, you know, and look how humanity's handling. Oh, everybody's separate. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. We need to do that. We need to physically, we need to separate. And what that does is it causes us to reset our intimacy at subtler levels, right? Then we're forced, it's like drawing the arrow back on the bow. We're forced to find more creative, more sophisticated, more powerful ways of intimately connecting with each other. How can I use my words? How can I gesture from afar? How can I cultivate the power of my heart to touch somebody who's at a distance in such a way that they really feel it and they know that they are loved? Something like that. Like, it's going to force us to go inward in our communication skills. And that great reset is also our skill set for interacting with the microbial level of our Earth, right? Because they're down at that feeling level. That's like their point of perspective on the reality, is this deep feeling level of creation. So as we reach out and cultivate, or I'd say reach within ourselves, to cultivate creative and powerful ways of really connecting intimately with others, not at the physical material, but at more of a subtle level. We are also developing the specific skill set required to interact with our microbial kingdom, with Earth's microbial kingdom, and set up, you know, a really valid, authentic, working relationship, like a really good, copacetic, harmonious relationship with the microbial reality of our Earth. Because they've already shown us that they're powerful. They're more powerful than we are. They closed Disneyland. Whoever thought that would happen? I thought that would never happen. Oh my goodness. So, right? So, you know, like there's some mutual respect there. There is mutual respect, even though the physiologies are so very different.